Alrighty.
All right, welcome, rejects, to another late show. Wednesday night, we've got our brewskis here with my two favorite co-hosts. Yes, oh, you still got some Devil's Backbone. I got me a tall boy Shinerbach here, and
Nice.
my lovely lady. Yeah, I had to represent Texas. I was thinking
Texas
today.
needs
I was
representing, doesn't it?
yeah, I was like, man, I'm gonna pick something up for tonight and. I don't know. I haven't really been feeling too proud of Texas here lately, and I was like, you know what?
We got
I will.
Shinerbach. We got that.
I will support Texas through beer. I will buy a good Texas beer.
There are a few things to still be proud of Texas. One is beer,
There are. Mm-hmm.
barbecue. We've got some
Cool.
pretty darn good country music, blues music. We got some good music. So
ZZ
those are
Top.
all. Yeah.
Yep. They are Texas treasures.
The Alamo Draft House. There are a few things to be proud of with Texas, even though Alamo Draft House has had some shady things go on with their employees or who they've supported, but I still like them as what they represent, even though they've had some issues.
Right. They're still a pretty cool theater chain. But anyway, Cody, nice to have you here tonight. Lindsay, my beautiful wife, I'm glad that you
Good idea to run out and join us.
that you were
Now
welcome
and the
to,
last one.
that you are able to join
And
us.
there's another co-host,
Hold
Olaf.
on.
Hi, Olaf.
Yeah, Olaf. He was watching Disney Plus, but since the internet is being problematic, there's nothing for him to listen to. I may need to put a movie on for him if he starts barking again. Yeah, I may have to put something on for him. He doesn't like silence.
Aw. You need to turn on some Disney movies here.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Nobody's ever sleepy at bedtime, except the people who got to put everybody else to sleep.
Right. We're still live. We're just going to talk and ramble.
No, that's fine. I think Olaf should get credit as a co-host because he has added some very important commentary to previous episodes.
Jim,
So-
if any of you are wondering, Jim's still on hiatus. Jim, we miss you, buddy. Hope you're doing all right. Can't wait for you to join us again. Getting into our spooky movies.
And holiday movies right after that.
Oh no! Between spooky movies and holiday movies is our entire month dedicated to Tolkien.
You're gonna make them watch Tolkien all month in November.
Tolkien, and there's only a few Thanksgiving movies.
There really aren't that many.
There's
There
not a
should be
lot,
more.
so that's why it's the month of Tolkien, and then right the week of Thanksgiving, we'll cover our son-in-law and trains, planes, and automobiles, and what's another? There was another one. Dutch.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Dutch.
I think I'm on a mission to find more Thanksgiving movies. There have to be more.
Yeah, there's some more out there, but
There's Thanksgiving episodes of great TV shows we could talk about.
yeah, we could cover Roseanne Thanksgiving episodes.
There's a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. I don't think our children are very fond of that one.
Yeah.
But I'll rewatch it. Poor Olaf, he can't watch Disney Plus.
Mm.
He's gonna get some Disney movies on a flash drive. Can I load notes? Can I get on Google for a quick second?
Did you have to put on A House of Thousand Corpses on for him?
He's watching Oh Brother Where Art Thou.
Okay, that's a good
Aw.
one. Yeah.
It's got music. It's got music in it, and it was like the only DVD Blu-ray by the Xbox that wasn't a scary movie or John Wick, and I don't know how he would feel. He already saw the first John Wick, so I don't know if he wanted.
You can't let him watch
What?
the others alone, obviously. He needs somebody to cuddle with because that's a scary movie if you're a dog.
Yeah. Surprisingly, we watched The Thing the other day, and he did not freak out during the whole dog sequence.
Oh my gosh.
She'll let him watch Cujo.
Wow.
I don't think he needs any ideas. I think
Right.
he's probably
No.
Anyway, okay. Back on track. We are here this week to talk about the 1981 splatter gore fest horror movie, B-movie cheese fest that is Sam Raimi's Evil Dead. I hope I didn't go overboard, but it is pretty overboard. Considered a classic. I like it for what it is, although there are some issues with it that are problematic.
Well, it was 1981, Christopher.
Yeah, it was. It's no excuse, but it was 1981. It was during the whole exploitation era. But well, I'm sure we'll get into that anyway. Cody, what are your initial reactions to it? Like, how do you view it as, first off, a film buff and a horror buff, and then like overall, like what's your overall reaction to it? Like, what place does it hold for you?
Well, I love this franchise as a whole. Like, even the remake, even the TV series that they did a few years ago, I pretty much enjoy all of the Evil Dead properties that they've done. I do think it's interesting, all the things you've titled it. It is all those things, but what's interesting about this first film in the series is it's not as extreme as the sequels are as far as cheesiness and humor. It's definitely more graphic with violence and how gratuitous and gory the violence are in the original film. Because the original film is as pure as a horror film as the series gets. I think the remake kind of is a little bit more of a traditional horror film, but there's still that zaniness. Like, all the demons in these movies are like trickster villains. Like, there's a little bit of humor and there's a little bit of dark comedy to this, even in this first movie.
Well, you start to see more of Ash peak in the second one, but what I think happened was after the first one, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but he got after kind of getting in trouble for it and having to go to court and everything over this. I believe he went to court. Am I right? Didn't he have to go and
I didn't know it was that extreme. I know this movie is still banned in several countries to this day due to the violence.
I think in the documentary they said he had to go and answer for the, like, go to court over this.
I thought he had to recut the movie.
And yeah, like they had to. No, I think they got away with it the first time around, but by the time the second movie was picked up, they were like, you can't. I think that's where the humor started to leak through. Like you said, kind of the zany part of it, with them being more trickster, you start to see more Ash kind of peek through.
Well, here's the interesting thing I listened to. There's a podcast called The Faculty of Horror, and it's about these two academic ladies. I'm not sure what their degrees are in, but they do a podcast on horror movies. And they did a podcast on the first two Evil Dead films. And they talk about, and it's mentioned in a really good article that's called, like, it's about Final Girls Chainsaws. It's all about the horror film tropes. And they talk about, especially in this first film, how Ash kind of has the character arc of what a final girl has in a slasher film. Like, he's not really overly the masculine hero in this first film. Like, the other guy, I forget his name, is very much more the macho guy. And
Well,
Ash,
I heard it put away. I heard it put a certain way that he's the hero in the sense that he got picked on the entire movie. Like, you know,
Instead of a serial killer chasing various people, it's one central character surviving all of the horror.
yeah, he's having to deal with all this, seeing his sister, his girlfriend, his best friend, all get taken by this evil,
mm-hmm.
and the horror is him being the survivor.
Right. That's a good way of putting it.
And he's not, in this first film, he's not heroic. It's more of the circumstances make you heroic because you're going to do what you have to do to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I will tell you one thing. I tell you one thing. This movie, even though I don't find any of these movies like actually scary, especially once we get further down in the franchise, because they could become more entertainment and almost comedies. And like when we get to Army of Darkness, that's a comedy practically.
Yeah.
I can't deal with cellar doors that are inside a house. My parents rented a house one time when they lived in Vernon, and the cellar door looked similar to the cellar door in this movie, and I'm like, I'm not going in that room.
No. Nope.
Nice.
That's where all the secrets hide down there under the ground.
Yeah, I'd be terrified. That and the Blair Witch. After watching those,
you can never.
Not going in any cellars.
Your parents kind of in the woods like that. Like it's scary just to step out onto their porch in the autumn. If you've seen any of those movies.
Yeah.
Okay, is it just me, or at the end of the Blair Witch, does it look like the dude's just taking a pee? Down there?
It does.
Yeah, the way you turn around.
Okay, as I've gotten older and I've watched it more, like it's not really a scary film per se. I like it for the way it was marketed and the effect that it had when it came out.
Scary because of the hype and the way it was presented, like documentary style.
It scared me. It was effective when it first came out. Like it affected me, and it scared me, and I'll give it props for that. Like it kind of started that whole genre, that whole found footage genre, and I like it for what it is.
Well,
the sequels
it kind of rejuvenated it. There was, of course, Cannibal Holocaust or whatever that film was called.
Yeah,
was made, which I've never seen, but I heard the director of that film made the actors like go into hiding after it was filmed, so people would think they were actually dead.
Right. He actually got into a lot of trouble over that as well. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of trouble.
But the Blair Witch Project, whether you hate or love the movie, which I guess my mother's never going to forgive me for making her take me to see it. But because I wasn't old enough to watch it by myself at the time it came out. But whatever you think of that movie, their marketing for that was brilliant. And that's really in the early days of internet marketing too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember getting like my old dial-up internet, logging on to the
World Wide Web.
The World Wide Web, yeah. Taking forever to load. Just one image. Like, yes, one image down, like 24 to go. Yeah.
But what's interesting about this movie, The Evil Dead, is that it was released in 1981, but it kind of took like a long time to get like distributed and out and about. Like it was like 83 before it was like released in America.
And it went to several years before that. Like I think they said it was like a year and a half before. Like it went from filming to actually being completed. It took like a year and a half because he kept running out of money. The main cast had to go on and do other projects and
jobs to get paid.
Yeah, they were filming like the Cellar was filmed in his garage, in Sam Raimi's garage. like Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi and his brother and a few other people stayed on for like 5 weeks afterwards just to film shots of Bruce Campbell alone around the cabin, and like they had all these other stand-ins, and it was crazy the way it was shot, like how backwards this movie was shot.
Sounded
and
like
done.
every school group project, but if they made a movie.
Well, that's where it came from, right? So Raimi and Campbell, and I forget the producer's name. I think it's Robert Tappert or something like that.
Yeah.
That's it.
They were all friends. They all went to college together. They had shot a film before this, and of course there's a short film that's kind of the basis of this movie.
Right. Well, Campbell was in that also. Campbell and one of the other girls, I believe, from the Evil Dead. Can't remember her name. But
Which is interesting that in every sequel they recast the actress to play his girlfriend, and by the time we get to Army of Darkness, it's actually a known actress. I think it's Bridget Fonda.
yeah.
But like, yeah, it's a different actor, and they're portrayed like their look is different in each movie too.
Right. And we can't. Hey, speaking of like little gags like that, we can't forget the Oldsmobile.
That's a staple in almost every Raimi movie. You can spot it. It's Uncle Ben's car in the Spider-Man movies. It's the old gypsy lady's car in Drag Me to Hell.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, it's even in the Quick and the Dead, covered up as a buggy, as a cart.
Wow. That's great.
And I'm sure it pops up in most of his movies. I can't remember where it shows up in some of his other films, but it's pretty much a staple in his movies. It's even in the Evil Dead remake.
Oh, nice. And see, I haven't seen that. I have not seen the remake. And sadly, now after doing our research and watching a bunch of YouTube on this, I'm most definitely going to have to go watch Ash versus Evil Dead.
I recommend it. It's quite fun, and I like that. Basically, the crux is okay. I don't know if they acknowledge Army of Darkness happened, or it's just the.
Well, he has his metal hand, right?
Yeah.
Metal hand.
Yeah, he's got his medieval hand. So
if it does happen, the scenario is this guy saved the world once 30 years ago. Nobody knows. He's kind of a loser now. But now he's got to save the world again, and he's stuck with these two younger people who are like, dude, what's wrong with you?
Nice. Yeah. From what I saw, I remember seeing trailers and stuff for it, but we just never got around to it. But again, now that I've kind of rekindled my interest for Ash, that and the video game that's coming out looks great.
Video game looks amazing.
Not only is there going to be a video game, there's going to be another movie.
Oh, nice. Is it going to be like a remake with another actor, or is Bruce Campbell going to be involved? Or
no, Bruce Campbell's involved. He even pops up in the remake. I'm going to spoil that, but not like in the main part of the movie, because originally they were going to do like a team up with the final girl from the remake with Ash. Because that was one of the reasons Raimi greenlit the remake, was the guy, Freddie Alvarez, who did it.
Mm-hmm.
He was the only person who didn't try to pitch him a story with Ash in it.
Oh, wow.
And so they were like, okay. There's even supposedly an Evil Dead musical where there's a song called What the Fuck Was That?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we saw still photographs of that, and I love that they had the sense of humor to be like, yeah, we can make this like a Broadway play. This totally works. People singing for no reason. It fits right in with the Evil Dead. It won't be out of place at all. Like the American Psycho musical.
Yeah.
That's so bizarre. That's such a weird genre of Broadway plays, but I'm like so intrigued by watching any of those. I don't know if I can watch American Psycho either.
I mean, Christian Bale is really good in it, and it is one of the few really well done horror films directed by a woman.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll have to make myself watch it then.
But I understand because the source material that it's based from is a little like, and the guy that wrote the book, it's a little.
It feels icky, but also you get to watch Jared Leto be murdered, so it's kind of like a little bit of a win-win.
Hey, Batman murdered the Joker. There you go.
Right? Hey, and I like Huey Lewis in the news, so there's that.
But somebody took the scene where all those guys are showing their business cards and put it to where they're just showing each other like pictures of cats.
That's nice. Fantastic.
I've seen the one with Pokemon cards where they're like showing off.
Man.
They're showing off their different Pokemon cards.
There's got to be a Magic the Gathering version of that that we have to find and watch because that sounds amazing.
Sorry about.
I have to get another drink. I'll be right back.
Okay.
But Raimi's not directing the new film, but he is an executive producer.
He is doing a multiverse of madness though, the new Doctor. So I'm pretty stoked to see that.
You think Bruce is going to show up somewhere in that?
He's going. He's got to. And what would be great is if he was his character from the previous Spider-Man movies, because it's all going to be multiverse stuff.
Like every single one, because he's a different character in each one.
Yeah, like he could be. Well, I always took him as maybe being the same guy, just different jobs. Like,
okay, so he's a wrestling announcer, an usher at the theater, and a maitre d' at a fancy French restaurant.
Like maybe he's just going from job to job, and he always ends up, like being right there. I don't know, wild fan theory, but
so you talk about some of the things that probably don't play so well 30, 40 years later. Raimi has gone and said that he apologizes, especially for the gratuitous of the tree scene, which I believe is what gave them an X rating. And when I watched it on HBO Max, it said it was NC-17. I was like, I don't remember this movie being NC-17. I thought it was R.
Well, what happened is
besmirching the good name of trees everywhere. Sam Raimi, shame on you.
This is from the actress in an interview that was on the documentary, and she said that they did not tell her that was going to be in there. Like,
post-production.
She said that she was in the theater with her mom at the premiere, and it happened, and she was like so embarrassed, and I felt like, man, I would feel so bad for her. Like, I was like. When I was like, man, they didn't tell her that was going to be in there. Shame on you guys. Like, you should have known better. Again, you could always go back to the excuse that it was the time. And it was
and they're also like, I'm not excusing this. And Raimi has apologized about it as well. But these are guys they're like 22 years old. They're 22-year-old boys,
Right.
I'm not excusing that, but there is a difference between a 22-year-old boy fresh out of college and, say, a 60-year-old man, the age of Raimi now.
Right, and you know what? I totally agree with that because
22-year-olds are still men, though.
They
are
men. You are right, Lindsay.
They're just very baby men.
Yeah, they're at 22, 20, 21, 22 years old. My raunchiness, my jokes were not I'm more aware than I was at.
Because you lacked the life experience to gain the perspective.
Exactly.
Of anybody other than your very
I'm more aware over my maturity, than I was at that age. So I understand where you're coming from. Like I can understand that they were dudes. They were like, we're gonna make this sick and twisted, and we're gonna add this. It's we'll laugh about it. But being, how old is he now? And is probably
it was an adolescent
50s, 60s
concept of
50.
sick.
I believe they are now in their early 60s.
Yeah, they're in their early
No.
60s, and I'm they've
it?
apologized, and now they know, like, man, I wish I hadn't put that in there, or it was just a different time. I apologize, and even the actress said that, he has since apologized, and she looks at it in a different light, and it is what it is.
I think all of them talked about how their age and their youth was and their enthusiasm, because they lacked the experience, was what like finished the movie in the first place. Was just people wanting to make this movie, even though it was uncomfortable and painful and gross and difficult. They were just so excited to be making a movie that everybody who participated agreed with what was happening, agreed with what they were doing. So, and they were adults. They were old enough to make that choice for themselves.
Right. Yeah, they consented to it. So
I don't think it was like maliciousness or abusiveness. I think it was just immaturity and lack of experience.
Experience. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you even look at Evil Dead 2, they do the scene again with the hillbilly redneck girl, Betty Joe or whatever her name is in that one. And it's still there, but it is not as gratuitous because there's not that like penetration scene with the tree branch that there is in the first film, which is shocking. And when I first saw it at the tender age of 13, why were video store clerks letting me rent that?
That was another product of the times, for sure.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, shit.
I think now you have to be a certain age to buy DVDs with mature ratings anyways.
Right.
Before it was just like, yeah, I don't know, here you go. That was what they were arguing, was like there were all these parents and all these I'll say advocacy groups that were upset parents that were like, our kids are going to get a hold of this. This shouldn't even be on film or on tape. And it was like, well, that's kind of your job as the parent or the mentor, is to look at it, physically look at it, and decide that shouldn't be the kids you're responsible for shouldn't have access to that.
Mm-hmm. Just
like Dee Snider defending Twisted Sister.
Yeah, the music code.
Yeah, like you're the adult in the situation. You have to be the person to like look at it and be like, oh.
As a parent now, we're really critical over the stuff we let our kids watch. Like you've got to, especially nowadays with YouTube and the internet and things they stream. Like you've got to be on top of that, or something's gonna slip through that you don't want them to see. And I mean, it's same would go back in my day. I'd go to the video store with my parents. Mama or daddy, can I rent this? And they would take it from me. They would look at the cover, read it, and it was either a yes or no, depending on what they thought. And I hated it back then, but they were being good parents. They were trying to monitor. Now, it did get to a point to where it was like, okay, yeah, whatever, because
you were getting older.
I was getting older, and I was renting horror movies and stuff like that. But when I was my kid's age, really young, they did watch what I was renting, unless they rented it. When they rented it was okay, because I could watch bloody movies, I could watch Beverly Hills Cop or Lethal Weapons or, Die Hards or Commandos or whatever else, they were renting at the time.
Isn't it interesting that our society as far as America goes, we tend to not mind violence being shown. But anything of sexual nature, then we're like, oh no.
That Protestant programming kicks in real
Right.
hard, and we're like, look away, children.
But you know what? Look at Britain. They're kind of the opposite.
Are they? They've been around longer.
They're okay with
had more generations to be like, fuck it.
They're okay with language and nudity on their mainstream TV than they are violence. And I could be wrong about that, but I've noticed like on their mainstream programs, say their version of a CBS or NBC or whatever, they've got programs on there that will have upper nudity, women bearing breasts and whatnot, and they're okay with that, and they're okay with language because I don't know, their curse words are different.
We're just desensitized to violence over here.
Yeah,
we just consume so much of it. We're like, yeah, what is that? That's normal.
Yeah, in our cartoons, and I know I want to sound like a really old person, but
be a really old person and be proud.
I'll admit it. I mean, look at G.I. Joe. Look at the cartoons that were designed for us growing up. You know how many explosions and
you mean like the Aliens
laser guns
toys and the Rambo toys and the toys for movies you should not have been watching at the time.
Yeah.
It's such a weird time, the 80s and 90s, with so many R-rated movies being marketed to children.
Hey, but I love those. I love those toy lines, though. Man, that Terminator toy line had some cool toys, though.
But yeah, like you, Chris, my parents showed me a lot of those action movies or action comedies when I was young. But I was too baby to watch horror movies until I was junior high age. So, but by that point in my life, my mom would just be like, "Oh, you want to go rent some movies? Well, I'm gonna wait in the car. Go get what you want."
Yep, that was. I remember my first job was Berkshire Brothers down here in Rusk in October of '99. I turned 16, and I would take my tip money that I would make daily, because I'd make at least $10 to $15 in tips a day, and I would take $5 of that, go to the video store, and they had a 5 movies for 5 nights for $5 deal on the older rentals, and I would go and just get every other day I'd be renting movies constantly. That's all I did was go to work and then go rent movies and go home. It was insane, but I just remember that.
I was way more sheltered than either of you. I was not watching. My parents were letting me watch Terminator and Aliens, but I wasn't watching anything gory or anything sexual until I was I'm in high school and you can't stop me now. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's because my mom was a mom in the 90s. Just that brief lapse of time made all the difference in that parent paranoia about what your kids are doing and where they are and what they're watching and who they're hanging out with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know, Chris, you're not the baby, but you're what, the 4th or 5th child of your siblings?
I'm the 4th, so I'm right in the middle, and I've got 2 under me. It's exactly under it.
You were it was also the oldest child, though, because of the age gap between the first 3 and the second set of 3.
Yeah, I was the oldest of the youngest 3, so.
Okay, so I'm the baby. My parents had already raised 2 sons who were grown, and I have a sister who's 5 years older than me, so I was pretty much given a pretty far lead, of what I could or couldn't do. As long as I wasn't out doing really bad stuff, they didn't really care what I was doing. They're like, well, you're a smart kid. You know the difference between what's real and not real.
My parents, and I mean this in the most loving way possible, but I was such a big nerd that my parents didn't
even bother.
They weren't worried. They were like,
stays
well,
indoors and doesn't talk to anybody.
well, he's not going to be having sex. We know that for sure.
Oh, that's not fair.
He's just a big nerd. Like he'll
He's
be
just
out,
read his comic books and watch Star Trek.
he'll be out and trying to explain the schematics of the Enterprise of some girl. So we're not worried about that. You know, he's going to be, his head's probably going to be, he's probably going to be at the movie theater or digging through movies somewhere or over at Josh's playing video games, you know. And I was an Eagle Scout, like not to use that as a crutch.
It was
but
your
I did.
cover.
It was my cover. Yeah, they just basically they were like, okay, you know what? Go ahead, go for it. We trust you. Just go do.
I'm so jealous of both of you.
Call and make sure to let us know where you're at. And
as long as the police don't bring you home, it's fine.
Yeah.
No.
So I basically there was a time in my life where I was just, if I wasn't working or doing school, because we homeschooled, I was out running the roads, going from friend's house to friend's house to the movies.
Movies like the
Evil maybe
Dead.
just
Shame on you.
And that's all we did: playing Axis and Allies, or playing video games, or renting movies. That was my young adult life. I did not party until I was much older.
Yeah, I didn't party till college.
Yeah, that was it. That was same.
I didn't party. I got married to Christopher pretty quick.
Yeah, we married right out of college.
I wasn't even in college for that long.
Yeah.
I'm boring. That's probably why I had such a hard time with this movie. It's just way too cool for me and scary and gory. But
have you seen the sequels, or was this your first?
No, I haven't seen any of these. Like, I knew who Bruce Campbell was, and I knew what body of work he was associated with, but I was like, I don't watch movies like that.
Well, I think you'll enjoy both the sequels. The second one is slightly a sequel, but also kind of a remake. Like, it's kind of a redo of the first one. And so in the second one, it's just Ash and his girlfriend, and they pretty much get right to it. Like, there's not as much exposition as there is in the original. Mm-hmm. And then there's a whole other group, like you learned about the professor who actually found the Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And his daughter and her boyfriend show up with the passages, and then there's like these two hillbilly characters that tag along. And then, of course, Army of Darkness has Ash transported to medieval times to fight the Army of the Dead.
I had Army of Darkness on VHS, and I watched that one over and over again because it was straight up comedy.
That looks like some Kevin Costner's Robin Hood inspires Robin Hood Men in Tights inspires Army of Darkness. Like,
there's
the darker, gorier version.
There's a big nod to Jason and the Argonauts in Army of Darkness too. Mm-hmm.
That whole
we gotta watch them. We gotta watch all of these this season.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I always liked Army of Darkness.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy those more because they lead more into the slapstick, because Sam Raimi's a huge Three Stooges fan.
Mm-hmm.
And
that one's very evident. That's very evident in Army of Darkness.
And there's almost always, in a lot of Raimi's earlier work, like a titled character like Shemp or something, because I guess that's his favorite Three Stooge. For those of you who don't know, there was other Three Stooges besides Moe, Larry, and Curly.
Shemp is
that's a fun rabbit hole to go down on YouTube. Is the Three Stooges rabbit hole?
Shemp was the real brother of Moe and Curly.
Yeah, they were all brothers, and Shemp was the original.
Moe Howard brothers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another sad story when when you look at that. I love the Three Stooges. I grew
Do
up.
you want to take something funny and then make it so it makes you cry? Then you should learn more about the Three Stooges.
Yeah, I grew up watching the Three Stooges, and I love them dearly, and I will watch them until the day I die because they are straight up. I will laugh my ass off to this day. They are just so funny. But then you read or watch like a documentary on them, and you're like,
I'm sad
man,
forever now.
I feel so bad for all of them. Like they just ended,
That's what Hollywood does to people, though, and it's been doing that since the beginning.
Yeah, they just got chewed up and spit out.
It's very tragic.
But anyway.
Another thing they apologize about this movie is Bruce Campbell apologizes for, like, I believe there's a scene where he slaps the actress that plays his sister. I think it's the actress that plays his sister. I could be wrong.
Is that the one where he like actually hit her with the wooden beams? Or is that like, did he actually like slap her with his hand?
No, he actually slapped her with his hand, I think, because, for some reason, for decades in Hollywood, we would portray this as a way of calming people down, and particularly women, is by slapping them and saying, "You need to calm down."
Man talk.
Yeah, I wonder if we could peel back the psychological layers of why that's such a trope of like, it works about as well as telling someone who's panicking to calm down. Like, it does the opposite. But in movies, it's magic, and somebody instantly like snaps back to what they are supposed to be focusing on. And it is mostly ladies getting slapped around.
Do you guys want to know 2 interesting facts about this movie?
Yes.
You probably already know them because you guys went down these rabbit holes.
I have another one after yours, if you don't already have it. Go ahead.
So a big component of this movie getting successful throughout the years, not just on the video market, but was Stephen King's endorsement of this movie when he saw it.
Yeah.
Which in the 80s, if Stephen King said something was scary, people were like, "Oh man, Stephen King said it was scary."
Yeah, exactly.
Maximum overdrive. It's going to scare your pants off. The cat's eye. It's going to scare your pants off.
And then Joel Cohen helped edit this movie.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah.
Well, he helped
that
edit
one we didn't know. Yeah.
And I guess that's how him and the brothers and Raimi met, and because they've collaborated a few times on projects.
Cool.
And in fact, I guess they all kind of hung out because Frances McDormand, Joel Cohen's wife, used to live with Holly Hunter, and so
all those beautiful, talented people just knowing each other, being friends.
So those are cool things. And yeah, the movie debuts, it shows up at Cannes in 82, eventually gets released in 83, becomes a cult following on video.
Here. Sorry, go ahead.
Also released in 1983.
Also released in 1983, yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Especially with people banning this and saying it's one of the most gratuitous and violent things they've ever seen, makes people want to see it. Which eventually leads to the sequel getting made, and then
the cover made me want to see it. Seeing that cover with the,
So did you see this one first, or did you see the sequels first?
I saw the sequel first. And
Part 2 or Army of Darkness?
Part 2 and then Army of Darkness. Both were Joe Bob Briggs. Introductions. I will give a shout out to him. TNT, Monster Vision, Joe Bob Briggs. Probably early 90s, somewhere in there. Still love him. Go check him out if you don't know who he is. Yeah. Mid-90s. If you don't, shame on you. Now, Monster Vision, but he was doing drive-in and stuff like that. He's been doing that since the early 80s.
Okay, but was he on TV before Monster Vision?
Yeah, I think it was cable. It was cable stuff. If you go back,
you're
he
right.
did specials for HBO, I think, and
the movie channel, I think.
The movie channel, yeah. So he had been doing stuff. I didn't know who he was until like TNT, like Monster Vision and stuff like that. Like
same.
But yeah, that's where I remember seeing it was Monster Vision, and then I bought Army of Darkness on VHS from Early Bird Video that was going out of business here in Rusk, and then I went back and watched the original. So
okay, so I saw these all 1, 2, 3 because my older brother, had told me about this movie, and then somebody else told me they watched it, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta check this movie out." So I just rented them in succession and enjoyed all of them. And it is interesting how Ash as a character changes throughout the movies, and he becomes more of a traditional heroic character, because in this first film he really isn't.
Yeah, you said he was a final girl, like the surviving victim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that version very much. I appreciate that flip of the script. Like, it's not the serial killer chasing like people off doing their own thing. It's one guy having to deal with the whole debacle from like the beginning. I do appreciate that.
But I think with each of the subsequent films and even the series, it relies on you finding Bruce Campbell charming. If you don't like Bruce Campbell, you're probably not going to like these movies.
I love Bruce Campbell, and I like. I'll tell you what, I liked him in Bubba Hotep. That's probably my second favorite Bruce Campbell role. And
Christopher, shame on you.
We'll watch it, and that's because it's a Joe Lansdale story, and I'm a huge Lansdale fan. He's a local guy. Matt Coaches, awesome dude. Like, if you don't know who he is, we're in the second season of Hap and Leonard now, which is amazing. I love that show. So yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad it got canceled, and I guess if it ever gets revitalized, they're now going to have to recast because of Michael K. Williams passing.
That's sad, man. Those are such great.
What's crazy
shows,
is that's like when he right before he passed away is when we started this series. So like by the third episode, it's like this. There's not going to be enough of this show to satisfy me because it got canceled, and now he can't play Leonard.
Yeah, he is Leonard. Like those. If I ever go and like, there's a new book coming out. He just announced that today on his site on Facebook that there's a new Hap and Leonard story coming out like in March of this next year, I think. And if now when I think Hap and Leonard, or if I'm hoping I get to read that book. When I do, that's who I'm going to picture in my head. Like they are Hap and Leonard. They did a really good job.
That is great casting.
Yeah. And old James Purefoy, is that how you say his name? Purefoy?
I believe so. He's a British actor. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
the original,
like Joe Lansdale, he has some features.
He would look if he were about half his own age.
Yeah, there's some facial features, and every time, like, we've been sitting here watching them, and we've also been watching a lot of interviews and stuff on YouTube, like kind of doing a deep dive on Lansdale, and there's some, like, he's got some facial features that just remind me of Joe Lansdale too. So anyway, I know we kind of got off on that. Great casting, great show. If you get a chance, I highly recommend it.
It's another thing that you can watch and be like, "Yay, Texas!" Even though it was filmed in Louisiana.
Yeah, Joe is another reason why we're
yes,
because
you should be proud of Joe R. Lansdale. He's a treasure. He's worked not only on his own stuff, but he's written for Batman. He wrote a few episodes of Batman the Animated Series. He's written comics. Jonah Hex, particularly, he's a big Jonah Hex guy. He's done a lot of work.
Yeah.
And he's even written on
Yes,
the Creep Show television series.
Nice.
Holy
nice.
cow. He seems like one of those people that if he can't write, he like can't function. Like it's just a robot that plugs in at night, and then when he is charged, he bangs out like amazing stories on paper.
Not only that, but he's got some views that I align with. He's got some pretty good views on just everything in general, from religion to politics to stuff that you normally wouldn't see here in East Texas, especially
from someone his age.
Nacogdoches, yeah, and someone his
area.
age. Yeah, it's very surprising, and I'll stop gushing over Joe
I've been
Lansdale.
sitting on my fun fact about Evil Dead.
Yeah, go ahead with your fun fact.
Because it's specifically about the premiere, and it involves somebody we've already talked about, somebody that's like one of my niche favorites, which is William Castle, the king of gimmicks, the guy who like rigged theaters.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi took a page out of his William Castle's playbook, and for the theatrical premiere, he had custom tickets, and he had wind tracks set inside the theater, and he had ambulances outside the way William Castle would to really hype up how scary a movie was going to be. Like, you show to the movie theater, you have to have a ticket that's different from the ticket you would normally buy if it was your local theater, and there's ambulances sitting outside, which if you've been in any local Facebook group, you can't be an ambulance in the public view and not have somebody be like, does anybody know what's going on down at the HEB? There's an ambulance and 6 cop cars. We gotta, we gotta junior sleuth this and figure out what happened. I just really appreciate that, because I loved William Castle's impact on theater, and especially like for the audience who's watching it in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was cool that they did a little nod to him, and they hyped up their own movie to the point where they're like, it's so scary you can't stand it, which just makes people want to go see it more.
Right.
Like whatever trouble Sam Raimi got into for how graphic this movie was, or how over the top it was, that's just more publicity, and it's more hype that make people
who else
line up to see it, which is very clever.
You know who else hyped up a movie like that? That was Mel Gibson with Passion of the Christ. He was like, if you don't see this,
didn't work
you're
on
going to
time.
hell.
I have no interest in watching that movie.
That's why we had busloads of old people like show up for that movie.
No, Mel Gibson's approach was like, the heaven or hell play that you have to see at least one local church.
Heaven's Gate,
Hell's Flames. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what Mel Gibson was going for, and that doesn't work on me. I much prefer the William Castle, like, don't even come see our movie. You're not ready for it. Look how bad it is. Look what it's doing to audiences.
We're sold out. You'll have to murder a nun for your ticket.
Yeah, you'll have to fight a hobo in the gutter for your scalp ticket.
Anyway.
I did not know that, but I love that. And that makes sense because you can get that kind of chaotic energy in Raimi's films, not just these movies, but I mean, look at something like that Doc Ock sequence in Spider-Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I was about to the zoom shots that are very precise. I don't know the technical term. Please forgive
I call
me,
it a Raimi shot. I don't know what the technical shot is. I call it a Raimi shot.
Straight up Raimi shot. That whole scene in Spider-Man 2.
He has a distinct directorial perspective. Like, he's like, the camera's going to be where I want to be in this story.
Just like you can tell a Wes Anderson film, you can tell a Raimi film just by the way it's shot and portrayed. So, okay. So, overall, Cody, what do you think of, like, what's your overall reaction? I think we kind of touched on this. I'm pretty sure we're all going to enjoy, oh, I'm sorry. Did you not finish your fact?
There was a second part to that fact. The theatrical
I'm sorry.
premiere was
ahead.
in a theater that Bruce Campbell watched movies in as a child.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Aw. So it's in Michigan.
It was a sentimental placement, but they still were like, yeah, let's make it look extra scary.
Well, that's awesome. Like, good for him. I'm glad. I bet
I'm
you that
looking
was
at a picture of it, and it looks like just any old little teeny tiny the Redford Theater.
I bet you that
Detroit's
meant a lot.
Redford Theater. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
it's a very cute little local theater. Good for Detroit.
Right. Well, I'll probably butt in on you here, but I'm gonna go ahead and give you my thoughts on the movie. I think I was about to ask you. I enjoy it. I enjoy this series. The tree rape is my least favorite, but as far as like practical effects and is it the greatest story? No. Does it have the greatest dialogue? Of course not. But I give it props for just being, if you can detach your mind and get past the cheesy effects and the bad acting, it truly is an enjoyable film. It's a great movie. With everything that they went through to make it, I think it turned out really great.
I think their effort and their enthusiasm is really obvious in it.
It
is scary because it was scary to make, and it was hard to make, and it was painful, and that's what they're trying to make you feel.
Right.
In the first one, I know the others are a little bit campier and a little bit sillier, but this one is like this is the scariest thing we can imagine.
Right. I think with
and we have very little money, so it's going to hurt me and it's going to hurt you. But at the end of this,
with what they had to work with and what they were going for, I think they were able to achieve it. It was effective. I view it.
The pencil doesn't still make you flinch, then.
That pencil scene. But I view it like I view Friday the 13th or Nightmare.
I think this is a step above Friday the 13th, but not quite up to the quality that the original Nightmare on Elm Street is.
Right.
It's in the pantheon, you guys. They're all up there on the same marble columns of was terrifying.
Right. Well, when I go back and watch these movies now, they're not terrifying to me like they were when I was a kid. Now when I watch them, I'm watching for the practical effects. I'm watching for, I don't know, I'm watching to reminisce. I'm watching more for nostalgia than I am anything, because I know these stories. They're not going to scare me like they did when I first watched them. But I think as for nostalgia's sake, just like, again, when I go back and watch other movies, other classic horror movies, it has an effect on me. They're just good. They're cheese, and they're overly gory, and they're fun. They're fun movies. And I think as you watch them, they get more fun and more cheesy and more comical. So yeah, I think it's just a fun overall, fun movie, and I think you should give it a chance. That's I know that was. If you haven't already, yeah, and I know that was kind of rambling. It's kind of hard for me to put it into an overall.
They're comforting in the same way that vinyl just sounds warmer.
There you go.
If you're that kind of person, it's like a fuzzy, cozy blanket for your brain because it's cold outside. It's getting colder outside. It's still kind of sweaty outside right now, but it's the same. You have the nostalgia filter on it, so you're just like, yes, press play. Feels good. I remember that. I remember feeling good watching that the first time. Let's do this again.
There you go. You watch these with nostalgia goggles, like you watch any other horror movie that was made in the 70s or 80s. There's a part of it that still kind of that still kind of scares you, but
no, I'm fully afraid of
it. As an adult, especially after you've watched them so many times, they don't scare you per se, um, again, you're just kind of watching it for nostalgia's sake. Like it's good for you in whatever way that works. And I'll stop rambling, Cody. Go ahead. It's hard for me to put that into the way I feel. Like it's just they're fun movies.
Well, I think this is a fantastic film, despite its budgetary issues, despite its cast, despite a lot of things. And yes, there are things they could have done better. And Raimi does go to do this better. And 2 other films, I do prefer the sequels to this film. But this is a foundational horror film. This film has been copied. It has been homaged. It has been done over and over. There would be no Cabin in the Woods if there wasn't Evil Dead.
Right.
This movie makes Sam Raimi a filmmaker. This creates the cult icon that Bruce Campbell has become. Yeah, is it the most polished film? No, but I think for what they had to work with, what they overcome, because it was pretty hellish making this movie. They nearly froze to death and all died in Tennessee making this thing. It's phenomenal for what it is, and I mean its cheesiness, its low budgetness. It's part of its charm.
The charm.
Right.
It's part of its charm, and the villains are not. They're creepy and spooky in a visual sense, but they're not really. They're more like they're basically Loki in a way. They're like, I'm just gonna mess with you and taunt you and then murder you. But I love this franchise. I love Ash as a character. I think Bruce Campbell is it's a shame he never became a bigger movie star than he did. He should be as famous as any action lead there is. But
and those eyebrows, it's crazy. He should definitely be like in a Superman movie somewhere at least.
But I love this movie, and I love the sequels. And if you haven't seen it, you should check out Drag Me to Hell, because that is Sam Raimi returning to his horror roots with a big budget after the debacle of Spider-Man 3. And it's well worth the penny. And I hope Peter Jackson, if you're out there, I doubt you're watching YouTube videos with very few views. But if you're out there, Peter Jackson, I want you to do this too. I want you to go back to your cheap, low-budget horror days, but with a big studio budget.
Hey, I would like to get into some of those early Peter Jackson movies. Meet the Feebles and Dead Alive.
Those are some more bananas movies.
Yeah, and now my favorite, and I'm telling you, it's become I don't want to say underrated because it has a cult following now, but The Frighteners.
I would say that's still a very underrated film because, one, people don't know that that's a Peter Jackson movie, really, and two, it kind of gets swept under the rug as like some forgotten film from the 90s, but it's really cleverly filmed.
Dude, that movie, yeah, that whole last part of the movie is intense. I don't want to ruin it for people, but when they're hiding in the asylum, and you got the crazy lady there, and then you got the evil spirit, Jake Busey. That whole scene was intense. Like that
was a good spooky movie.
Yeah, that was a good movie. And again, I'm sorry if you're tired of this, but there is a director's cut that I highly recommend.
Nobody will ever tire of hearing you say that.
I cannot wait till we do Ridley Scott. He's got to be your favorite filmmaker, Chris, because almost every one of his movies has a director's cut.
Well, okay, I'll admit that it's hard for me to choose which Blade Runner cut. I mean, there's too many Too many cuts of Blade Runner. I'm sorry.
No such thing. We have to watch all of them.
Well, yeah, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will get to it. But yes, guys, if you haven't already, check it out. The Frighteners. I kind of recommend that for one of our Halloween movies. I mean, we're gonna watch it anyway. We watch it every Halloween. That's one of our favorites. So maybe that's something we could cover. I'm good if you are. But anyway, guys, anything else? Lindsay, anything else? Do you have any more facts?
Was scary, and I didn't like all the parts I had to cover my eyes for, but I'm going to keep watching scary movies because it's September.
Yeah, we're really getting into the scary movie part. The thing, we're ramping up our scary movies.
I am being a very brave baby because I don't watch horror movies, and that's for a reason, because my brain makes plenty of sad thoughts all on its own. I don't need any help about like horrifying deaths or hauntings, but I can't help it. We got to watch these.
What helps is we usually try to go and watch like a behind the scenes, like a making of, or
if we can lampoon it while we're watching it, like make fun of the cheese or make fun of the whatever. It's a lot easier. Yeah,
we try to make it as light as possible.
This one's harder because I've lived in places that were like spooky and out in the woods often, so it's hard to be like, yeah, that wouldn't scare me. Like, no, anything in the woods at night is scary.
Well, Lindsay, if you see a book made of human flesh, don't read it out loud.
I already know what not to do. I've seen enough horror movies to know the big don'ts to avoid. But what's that?
I have the Necronomicon over here, by the way. It's not the one from the movie, but it's an actual little book that I picked up called the Necronomicon. I haven't read it. I don't want to unleash anything.
Not out loud. So, just quiet bedtime.
No, don't read it out loud. And don't recite the words from the day the earth stood still.
Right.
Those are some pretty simple rules, kind of like Gremlins, and people still get it wrong. So just don't read out loud.
Well, guys, I think that kind of wraps it up. We got a good 1 hour and 6 minutes in. We could probably go on and on because, again, there's 3 movies, a show. There's like multiple games that are really awesome.
Is there a show?
Comic books.
Yes, that was a good seller back when we had our comic book shop. That was a big deal. We had
the Ash versus Freddy versus Jason.
Yes, I had all 3 of those covers somewhere. I'm pretty sure they got sold, but yeah, that was a big deal. And Ash versus Army of the Dead, that was a long running book that we had, and there was all sorts of crossovers that he did. So yeah, I mean, they did some really cool things with the characters. I want to say they actually had an Ash versus Marvel Zombies, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. They had an Ash versus Marvel Zombies line. So it got pretty interesting there for a while.
That seems insane.
Anyway, so yeah. Yeah, they really did a lot with the character, and for years we were saying like, man, they're gonna do Ash versus Jason versus Freddy. That's gonna be a movie, and then here comes the comic book, and we're like, well, I guess they're not gonna do the movie. And then of course we get the TV show, and
there's a reason there was a movie.
So the Necronomicon does show up in Jason Goes to Hell.
Yes, along with some sort of dagger, I believe, too, that
they're supposed to use to dismember the Deadites. That's how you...
Yeah.
It's Sumerian. I remember that much.
Yeah, that's right.
Sumerians are mentioned in Ghostbusters, and that's a spooky movie I have seen too many times.
Yeah, we saw where they were actually in production with an Ash versus Jason. And they couldn't come to a decision on whether Ash would live or die, or how he would die. So towards the end, they scrapped it, and that's what became the Jason movie with the Book of the Dead and the dagger. Like they kept those.
Okay.
That's what Jason Goes to Hell became.
Yeah, they basically rewrote it, because it was supposed to be Ash versus Jason.
Which explains why that was so weird. Because
that makes more sense now.
Where it had the magic and it was just really it was so weird. Because
if you don't have that context, how are you supposed to how are you supposed to interpret that movie?
Right.
Mhm. Well, do you guys mind if I spoil something for you in Ash versus the Evil Dead, because it was an original alternate ending to Army of Darkness?
I don't
No,
mind at
go
all.
ahead. We're gonna get around to watching it. Hey, we're fixing to start Dexter, so
I'm not a spoiler.
Ah.
yeah, we haven't watched it. We're about to watch
Okay,
Dexter, so
so Ash versus the Evil Dead ends with Ash ending up in a post-apocalyptic future where the dead has taken over, which this is the alternate ending to Army of Darkness, is that they accidentally send him to the wrong time. They don't send him back to his time.
Oh no.
But I guess they
now I
decided
gotta watch that.
But I guess they decided with Army of Darkness to end it on a more happy note. And then, of course, we didn't get anything film or television wise for a very long time.
Right. Man, that's pretty interesting.
But
Yeah,
Bruce Campbell will return as Ash Williams at least one more time. I guess it is the role that has defined his career.
That'll be pretty interesting. I wonder if he'll have a passing of the torch like Indy's doing in this new movie.
Say what?
Apparently, the female lead in this movie is supposed to be taking.
Oh, Phoebe
Indy's
Waller-Bridge is
Yeah.
going to be. Oh, man. Okay.
They're supposed to be passing the torch on to her. There's been a lot of backlash,
Did
but
you say Indiana Jones?
they're doing another Indiana Jones movie.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford at 79.
Ooh, I wonder how he feels about that.
Well, from someone who didn't really mind Crystal Skull all that much, I'm a little on the fence about this one. I mean, he's, you know,
I don't know. I will see. I'm interested in it because one, James Mangold is directing, not Spielberg.
right.
So maybe there'll be something interesting there, because I feel like Spielberg didn't really want to do Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think he felt like he's obligated to do it. I think Spielberg is past doing these type of movies.
He's doing musicals now. You know, he's doing West Side Story and things that he wants to do. So, which actually looks magnificent, by the way.
Than Jesus, and he can make the movies he wants to make now.
Hey, new West
if
Side Story looks great. Like, I'm kind of excited to see that.
But I would rather someone else make it than Spielberg just feeling like he needs to make it because people want him to make it. If he doesn't want to do it, don't do it.
I think that if Harrison Ford gets his way, that Indy's gonna die in this. Like,
because that's what he wants. All his characters to be dead, so you can't bring them back.
No, really, he wants Han to die off, and he wants Indy to die off. I think that's what he wants before he hangs it up. He wants his two beloved characters to die off. Like, I think that's what he really wants.
Well, he more loves the Indiana Jones character than he does Han Solo. Like, I was one of the people.
Yeah, he does. Like, I know he prefers Indy over that, but I think he's so old that I think that's his way of retiring his characters off. You know, like.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't surprised he died in The Force Awakens, because him and Lawrence Kasdan wanted to kill Han Solo off in Empire.
Right. That's why they had him frozen in carbonite, so that way they could keep him in if Harrison didn't want to come back, or, you know, unfreeze him if Harrison did come back, which they got him back.
Well, it's because Lucas wanted him to come back.
Yeah. But
I'm interested in it, and Mads Mikkelsen, I think, is being the bad guy, so that could be fun.
So I guess this will be set in probably closer to the 60s, huh? The late 50s, early 60s?
It's got to be the 60s, at least.
Yeah, because now Crystal Skulls was like what, mid 50s, early to mid 50s.
Because he's dressed like a T-bird.
Yeah, and they were still testing atom bombs, so
yeah.
Probably in the early 50s, right after the World War wrapped up. But,
well, not to pick on anyone, but I would much rather watch Phoebe Waller-Bridge go around discovering secrets than a Shia LaBeouf.
Well, Shia LaBeouf
yes.
needs time to himself, clearly. So
yeah, I'm glad.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
That was probably my favorite part of Crystal Skull, like at the end where his hat blows down the aisle, and he reaches down and picks it up, and he's about to put it on his head, and then Harrison like grabs it from him and puts it on his head. Like, no, not today.
Try, Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, not today.
The one good thing they did with that movie was I was glad they brought Karen Allen back, that Marion was the mother of his child.
Yeah.
That was very sweet.
And you know what? I'm sorry. People rag on the aliens, but if you watch religious artifacts do what they did in those movies, or voodoo artifacts like with the Shankara stones, but yet you don't like aliens, come on.
You're just being nitpicky.
They're both the same. They're religious artifacts and aliens are the same.
You're no true lover of archaeology if you can't accept the Crystal Skull aliens.
I know aliens are a little more far-fetched, but come on, when Shankara stones start to glow and he reaches in and pulls a beating heart out and the dude's still alive and it catches on fire. If all that is cool, but yet aliens aren't, like, I mean, I get that's your preference. Yeah, but if you think you're like, well, aliens aren't plausible.
Aliens are our neighbors, and you should just get.
I don't get that, but I'll watch a heart catch on fire after it's ripped out of a living person's chest.
Well, there's a lot of people who don't like Temple of the Doom either.
Yeah, but come on, like, or holy water that cures you from a bullet wound. And I'm not ragging on him because
holy water.
It was the elixir of life. It was from the cup of Christ
That's right.
And he drinks from the wrong cup, and it de-ages him, and he turns into a skeleton. If you're
chose
fine,
poorly,
all of that, but yet aliens are the most ridiculous thing. I don't know what to say.
I think it's more of what Cody was talking about, and it just really felt like Steven Spielberg waited till the last possible minute to fulfill the obligation he felt to make another Indiana
He probably
Jones movie.
did, but you know what?
But he's still Steven Spielberg.
I know.
It's a watchable movie.
I am the defender of shitty movies, and that's just who I am. I have to be that guy that.
You're a cinema.
I don't think it's a shitty movie. I think there are some really good elements in it. I just think that
it's not my favorite.
It feels like a cover band. It feels like I'm going to see the Rolling Stones, but they're not playing the songs I want to hear. They're playing stuff for.
Okay, I'll put it this way. To me, it feels like Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. No, just listen.
How dare you?
Listen.
That's the best Harry Potter movie.
It is a great movie, but even you can agree that it feels different because it was a different director, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's still Harry Potter, and it's still great, and it's still a part of that lure. It was just the first movie that felt different from the previous two in the franchise. It was the first one to go a little darker, to get a little braver. And I'm not saying that was the case with Crystal Skull. I'm just saying it's a part of the Indiana Jones family. It just feels different. It's a different baby all on its own. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just got a different feel to it,
Yeah, I think that's what most people's problems are. But I think it holds up better than Lucas's prequels as far as just as a movie, with all its aesthetics.
Right.
but
Right.
there's a few problems. I don't like Ray Winstone's character at all in the movie, and there's still too much CGI in it that's not necessary.
Right.
But it's not a bad movie. It's just when you
Right.
look at it compared to the other three films, it is a drop in quality.
Yeah, okay. It's like the prequels. It's never going to hold up to the original trilogy, but they're still decent. Like they're still, yes, they relied a little bit too heavily on CGI, but I will go to bat for that, which we won't get into because if they opened up a whole world of digital technology to Hollywood because of those films. They did a lot of experimental stuff because of those films. Like, just like the original trilogy, it led the way in certain technology in the way that certain things were done with special effects that approved on what we have now. It benefited from that. So I'm all for those the prequels. Like I will defend them, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it probably relied too much on CGI. Like it was in that time where CGI was just being used a lot. They were like, oh yeah, it's like everything's CGI now. Like but it was still very obvious. I don't know. It's a fun movie. It's a good movie. Just it's not. I don't hold it in regards to any of the previous three. But like I don't mind it.
But the Evil Dead is a great film with great practical effects.
Yes. We will go with that with a lead out. The Evil Dead is a great movie, great practical effects. They did a great job. It's a fun, campy popcorn movie. It's a fun movie to curl up on the couch with if you can talk your significant other into watching it with you. Curl up with some popcorn and have some fun with it. But after you watch this one, do watch Evil Dead 2 and 3 because they're delightful and you'll have so much fun with them.
It's a fun movie. So what are we gonna do next week?
I don't know. Man, what do you want to do? Do you want to do Frighteners? Do you want to do Frighteners? You want to do another movie? There's a lot of them out there.
Ton of content.
Man, we could do OG Poltergeist. I don't know, man. Like, what do you feel like? You want to do something a little scarier? We could do The Witch. We watched The Lighthouse, by the way. That's a weird freaking movie. Like, man, I still don't know what to think about that movie. Like, the acting was good. Like, William Dafoe nailed it in that. Like, other than his constant farting, like he nailed it in that movie. His acting was great, and the way that he would, man, it was the back and forth. Like he would say something and then turn around and not sound crazy. Like he would say something crazy and be going with it, and then the next sentence, he was talking sane again. And it was just like, is he crazy? Is he not crazy? Like, it was just very back and forth and an odd movie, but a visually stunning movie. And yeah, that's all I can say about that. That was a weird movie. But I'm good with anything, man. Like, I don't know.
Okay. Well, let's sit on it. We won't announce it yet.
Okay. We we'll announce it on the page, and we'll decide. Like, there's just so much out there that I don't know what to start with. To be honest, we started watching Overlord last night, but never did.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, very Wolfenstein. I grew up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I grew up playing the Wolfenstein games, so I was like, man, this is just Wolfenstein all over.
Well, we're going to call it a night, folks. If you have suggestions or things you'd like us to talk about, you can comment on the page, either Facebook, Twitter, or even on this YouTube video. Let us know. But we'll be back next week with a spooky movie, and we're going to be doing The Royal Tenenbaums Friday with our Wes Anderson series.
Yay, that's one of my favorites.
So stay tuned. Good night.
Yes, good night, folks in Reject Land.